Hi there guys, Sam here. Welcome back to another video where I talk about potentially replacing my Mk7 Golf R for a brand new Mk8 Golf GTI. So yeah, I'll get straight into the video really. So yes, welcome back to another video. I hope you are all well. And if you're not familiar with this channel, basically I have a Mk7 Golf R. I've documented it over the last sort of 3.5 years that I've kind of had ownership of the car. And I also do a lot of other kind of like VW content as well on here. Most notably a little bit around the Mk8 Golf GTI. And I kind of wanted to talk about, well, potentially is that's an option to replace for my Mk7 Golf R. So yeah, let's get right into the discussion. So the Golf GTI, such an iconic car, you know, built in the 70s. It's hugely important for everyone. And I think a lot of people sort of class it as kind of like the people's supercar. And I think that's, you know, right, to be honest with you. It's a great car. Certainly the Mk7 Golf GTI was really, really good. For me personally, what actually stopped me from getting a Mk7 Golf GTI was the Mk7 Golf R, which is why I purchased that. Price difference here in the UK, there was nothing in it. You know, £1,000. Sometimes equivalent Golf GTIs would be more expensive than Golf Rs, spec dependent. And because of that, I was kind of like, well, I'd rather have the extra, you know, 60 brake horsepower, four-wheel drive. You know, I can still get myself a manual because I like driving a manual. Get it 3-door as well, which is great. Won't be able to have that for the Mk8, sadly. Yeah, and it was the right decision to do. Certainly because I'd never owned a VW. I'd never owned anything outside of a Ford. And yeah, I've loved the car and I've enjoyed it a lot. But, you know, things move on, technology moves on, and time moves on. And, you know, come next year, you know, I might be thinking maybe 4 years worth of ownership of a Mk7 Golf R. Maybe it's time to sort of move on to something else. Now, the more and more I hear about the Golf GTI, just a standard one, 245 PS, you know, nothing extraordinary. The more I like it, actually. I like a lot of the little things that they've kind of done with it. They've tried to improve the handling. You know, it's obviously a lot slipperier through the air with the new Mk8 shell that it's kind of got on. And it actually sounds really, really good. And in fact, from this clip as well, which I'll leave in the description as well for you to check out, it makes some good noises. This is actually a manual car as well. And that's a big thing to say, the manual. Now, hot hatchbacks, you know, cars in this segment, the most important thing for me is that engagement with the car. My Golf R is in the manual, for example, and you get a decent amount of engagement. But one thing that I would say is disappointing a little bit around the drive is that it's very, very efficient, very, very clinical. And when you can have the most fun, which is on a back road in the corners, yeah, it's too good for its own good. You can pin your foot flat to the floor, even with a 300 brake horsepower car, and you're gone. No wheel spin, no problem. You know, no hassle, nice and stress free, which is great for a daily. But sometimes when you just want that little edge, other than its pure acceleration, which, you know, it's a quick car, 0 to 60 in around 5 seconds, pulls enough, more than you'd kind of need. Downside around, as well as having that awesome traction, is because of the Haldex 4-wheel drive system, the car weighs a lot more. Now, weight isn't really talked about as much as it probably should be in the car industry. People see a badge and they like the car. But, you know, you're looking at the best part of 80 to 100 kilos difference between a GTI and an R. And that, in short, equates to power as well, because you need less power to get that car up to speed than you would a Golf R. So actually that sort of 50, 55 brake horsepower difference is not quite as big as you'd think. Particularly on the move, when you get moving as well, it's got less to kind of shove along. Remember, it's the same engine, it's the same EA888 engine in both, just with a different state of tune essentially, and yeah, less cooling needed as well, because it has less power. It has kind of less need for that. Now, what you get with a car that weighs a fair bit less is you get a little bit more agility, just naturally. One of the reasons why I love fast forwards and my Fiesta ST, which was before my R, was its handling. You know, it weighed just over a ton. It was just brilliant in the corners. It didn't really matter that it didn't have that much power. It was so much fun in the bends. Now, this car, obviously, it's still going to weigh a little bit more than that, but it's going to be fun. And that's kind of where they kind of try to market it. It's a brilliant daily, which hopefully you know, when you want to drop it down a few gears and have some, you know, have a fun on a back road, it's still going to deliver. And the big thing is that you can only, from my understanding, I've done a lot of content on the Mk8 Golf R, which, you know, check out a link above on kind of like the latest images of that, and actually kind of the final images of that car. That is likely to be DSG only. It's unlikely they're going to add a manual because it wasn't particularly that popular on the R. Which I get, you know, for most people who just want a car to do everything, I 100% understand the DSG. But I like a manual. It brings down the price of the car because it's cheaper and it's easier. It's a little bit more simpler. You're in the control, and yeah, I still see that there's a big place for manuals, particularly for this type of car. So to only be able to get if I want a Golf and I want a top performance Golf, the GTI is potentially where I'm going to have to be at. Now, I know in different regions it's different sort of demands, and I understand that the Mk8 Golf R in, say, like the US is likely to still have a manual, but in the UK, it's going to be hard for them to justify, particularly when you're sort of, it's a right-hand drive rather than a left-hand drive, which is in Germany. Yeah, the costs of it must be quite high for VW, so I can see them not doing the Mk8 Golf R in a manual. You know, to be confirmed, we will have to see. Certainly all the testing on the Nürburgring, that is a DSG all day long. Now, I've never really understood the DSG in the GTI, and I know a lot of people obviously went for it because it's an automatic gearbox. But yeah, I definitely always push for a manual. that is just me. And it's really got me thinking, because if I was to upgrade my Mk7 Golf R for a Mk8 Golf R, you know, come next year, I would personally probably have to part ways with probably just over £20,000 on top of what I would get for my Mk7 Golf R. That's a heck of a lot of money for essentially the same car. It's similar power. It's going to be around 300 brake horsepower. Yeah, it's a very similar car. How deck system, four-wheel drive. I know what I'm going to get with it. Now, if I was to go from, say, my Mk7 Golf R to a Mk8 Golf GTI, first of all, be interested to know how much a GTI is. Maybe a little over £30,000. I think the power output helps it bring the price down. Manual gearbox would help bring the price down. That's what I like. That's why I went for my 3-door manual Golf R, because price is an important factor for me, particularly for a daily. It's going to depreciate. So if you were to say, you know, okay, it's still going to cost me the best part of £15,000, which is a lot of money, but you're getting a heck of a lot of car. You know, for me personally, and maybe potentially you lot on, you know, on the other side of this, you know, fuel in the UK and in a lot of other countries, slightly different due to coronavirus because petrol prices are quite low. Fuel is a huge cost, and it's the biggest cost for me in car ownership. Forget insurance, forget tax, forget depreciation. Fuel is where it's at, particularly if you're doing a fair amount of miles. It is a bit more efficient because it's got less power, it's got less weight to lug around as well. So yeah, and I'd like to think in that body shell, it's more slipperier in the air. Aerodynamics seems to be quite important, play a huge part these days, and yeah, it's the latest and greatest technology, so it should be better. I like the design of the GTI. Those twin exhaust pipes, I like it on either side. You know, I'm not a big fan of exhausts on the left. On a right-hand drive car, it just looks weird. For example, my R has obviously 2 exhaust pipes, well, quad tailpipes, 2 on each side. Yeah, it's got a good look for it. Now, I know I've checked out images before on the GTI, and yeah, at first I wasn't so sure, but a little bit more of it grows on me. I like how it's a very subtle car with a little bit of flair and aggression to it, with its sort of like red stripes, obviously iconic on the front of the car. A little bit more quirky without really shouting too much about it. And for daily use, you just don't need a quicker car. You know, 0-16 just over 6 seconds. It still would be the second fastest car I've ever owned. So it's not going to be slow. And I think the one thing with the R, I haven't really driven around in the last 3 years thinking I need more power. So the GTI could be right up my street, particularly on prices. You know, I still, even today, think, oh, well, you know what, a Mark 7 GTI would probably be good enough for me. But financially, it makes no sense. I'd be essentially trading in my Mark 7 Golf R for an equivalent Mark 7 GTI. Why would I do that without there being a financial gain? Same price, I'll have the Golf R thanks. But in the Mark 8, I feel they're going to price it slightly differently. Particularly with the Mark 8 Golf R being DSG, it's not going to be a cheap car. Let's put it that way. You're looking at 38,000 pounds for that car, based on what we know from the Audi S3, which is equivalent to it. Whereas the Golf GTI, it's got a different segment to contend with. It's looking at Ford Focus STs, which does have more power. i30Ns, that kind of category, which is just over £30,000. And who knows what sort of deals you can get these days. And particularly on like an ex-demonstrator car, which is how I managed to find my Golf R for the price I did, which made it attainable. There's lots I love about the GTI, not only for as a daily use, but also actually for the channel. It's so iconic. Everyone loves it. I love talking about cars which, you know, everyone can have, you know, and everyone can have that little bit of more quality than, let's say, a lot of cars out there, but not too much that you're sort of like, you're showing off, you know? It's just has that blend, and it's had that for a long time. And as a result, badge talks, you know, and that badge of GTI right in the middle says a lot, and they hold their money really, really well. So it's not the worst car to be getting into. Arguably better than getting into most supercars or cars that people feel that they're getting potentially as a bit of an investment. You know, this isn't an investment, but it's not going to, you know, pull your pants down and you're going to find yourself losing 10, 15 grand after the first year or two. It just doesn't happen with GTI. Touch wood. Yeah, the economy and the world doesn't completely fall apart in the next few years, which, we'll have to wait and see on that. But let me know your thoughts on what you think about the GTI, because it has been growing on me, and it has been, you know, I've been thinking about it. I've seen some decent videos on it, and I'll play this alongside. No sound. And I like it. I like the manual gearbox. It's a bit of a chunky, like, gear lever. It looks a little bit more subtle than I probably thought before. I thought inside it was going to be a massive tech fest, but it's actually quite simple with the way its screens are laid out. And again, it's got that same sort of class that, you know, you can probably be welcomed at a car event with open arms, but, you know, no one's going to turn a blind eye if you pull up at a nice hotel, or, you know, you're going out for a nice dinner. It's that kind of quality car, which is very hard to find. I'm not a person who shows off with kind of anything I have, to be honest. I like being under the radar, and that's where this car, you know, goes in. Hugely popular cars, the GTI, you know, either for people who fancy modifying them or just using them every day. What do you think? Do you think that should be an option for me next year? It's certainly something that I'm really seriously thinking about, and there's a lot I like about the car. Okay, looks of the Golf 8 in general, we're just going to have to see. But it's a good little car, and it can kind of do everything you'd want. You know, it's something really, really worth thinking about. I'm a big fan, you know, of what VW are trying to bring to the table, and that's why I talk a lot about the R sort of products with the Golf R, because I feel that's the direction they're going to. They're kind of forgetting a little bit about the GTI, which is a bit of a shame, because, you know, they sell by the bucket load in the UK. They're so desirable, really, really desirable, and that's good, because you don't want to be losing tens of £1,000s, not in this day and age. And that could be the right car to get yourself into. Okay, it might not have all the quality touches of your Mercedes or whatever, but then you're not paying for it, so it's not the end of the world. I think it's a great car. I think it could be a great car for the channel as well, but more importantly, from a personal point of view, you know, I do this YouTube channel because I enjoy it and enjoy talking automotive car talk with you. You know, I think it could work for me and my circumstances in my life, and that's quite important. I don't get a car to just flip or to show you for a couple of months and then, yeah, sell it on. This would be sort of like a 3-4 year kind of car. Yeah, and I believe it's going to come out before the Mk8 Golf R. We've seen more about this car, which means it gives me a little bit of time that maybe I might be able to find a nearly new model for a decent whack off. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, and yeah, yeah, it's another option, which I think is important. You don't always have to go to the top of the class to kind of get what is right for you, and the GTI with the name, you know, a lot of people that are potentially watching and listening to this video, you know, I've gone on for quite a bit, are probably quite fond of this car. And yeah, I don't think anyone who's into their cars, you know, the GTI has just been such a huge influential name. And yeah, watch this space, see what I can do. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would you go from a Mk7 Golf R to a Mk8 Golf GTI, in short? Yeah, it's certainly something I'm thinking about. The manual gearbox thing is quite a big thing. And price. Fundamentally, you know, don't have a bottomless pit of money. I just, yeah, normal guy, work my Monday to Fridays. Yeah, I have a bit of YouTube on the side just as a bit of a hobby. So for the everyday guy, this is kind of like your everyday supercar. And it'll be interesting to see it in person. I think we're probably going to see it in the UK this year. Yeah, and I'll be for sure checking that out, and I'll be letting you know as well. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please, you know, subscribe and share the type of content I produce on this channel. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it, particularly with what VW are kind of producing recently. They're really, you know, I feel like they're top of their game. I know they've had to make cutbacks on this car. I've done videos on that in the past. But yeah, you know, they're trying. You know, it's difficult times for everyone. But yes, thanks so much for watching. If you're in the UK, I hope you've enjoyed your bank holiday Monday and you can settle in and listen to me rant about a Golf GTI in a positive way. You know, there are other cars out there, and I think this is a top of its class in my mind, particularly from the reviews that I've seen. It's never gonna, you know, massively excite you. It's never going to be that raw kind of feel, and it probably won't reach limits that you can get from an R. But a lot of what the Golf offers is that everyday, not necessarily being that sort of weekend blast kind of car. So yeah, it's lots to think about, and something that I thought about today, and I wanted to share with you lot. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe for plenty more content on my Golf R, because that's not going anywhere. Well, for the time being, you know, I don't really see any reason to get rid of a car that I'm enjoying a lot, but this is certainly something that I'm keeping my eye on, particularly for next year, and the Mk8 Golf R, as you know. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers, guys.